The studio lights burned bright that crisp morning as Harrison Ford, Hollywood's rugged icon, settled into the guest chair on The View. The man who'd brought Han Solo's swagger and Indiana Jones's grit to life was no stranger to the talk show circuit. This was just another stop on a press tour for his latest blockbuster, a chance to charm audiences with his trademark wit and weathered charm. The hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, Sunny Hostin, and Joy Behar, sat across from him, their smiles polished but their eyes sharp. The audience buzzed with anticipation, expecting the usual mix of light-hearted banter and movie plugs. But from the moment Joy Behar opened her mouth, it was clear this wouldn't be a typical interview. Well, Joy began, her voice dripping with that familiar sardonic edge. Look who's gracing us with his presence. Harrison Ford, the guy who's made a fortune playing the same grumpy hero in every movie. The words landed like a jab, sharp and deliberate. The audience let out a nervous chuckle, unsure whether this was playful or pointed. The other hosts shifted in their seats, their smiles tightening. Ford's publicist, hovering just off camera, felt a cold knot form in her stomach. She'd prepped the producers for a friendly, professional chat, nothing like this. Ford's jaw clenched, but his voice stayed cool, measured. I'm sorry, Joy, but I think you've got me mixed up with someone else. I've played a pretty wide range of characters over the years. His tone was polite, but there was a steel beneath it, a warning not to push too far. Most hosts would have caught the hint. Joy wasn't most hosts. Oh, please, she shot back, leaning forward with a smirk that could cut glass. Let's break it down, shall we? Grumpy pilot in Star Wars, grumpy archaeologist in Indiana Jones, grumpy detective in Blade Runner. Starting to see a pattern here, Harrison. The audience's laughter faded into an uneasy murmur. This wasn't the warm, jokey vibe they'd tuned in for. The air in the studio thickened, the tension almost tangible. Ford glanced at the other hosts, searching for an ally to steer things back on track. Whoopi adjusted her glasses, looking like she wanted to intervene but wasn't sure how. Sarah and Sunny exchanged quick glances, their silence louder than words. Joy, Ford said, his voice steady but carrying an edge, I came here to talk about my new film. Maybe we could focus on that instead of whatever point you're trying to make. But Joy was just getting started. Point? Oh, I don't have a point, Harrison. I'm just calling it like I see it. You've been coasting on the same old roles for decades. When's the last time you actually stretched yourself as an actor? The question hung in the air like a challenge, daring him to snap. The audience was dead silent now, every eye locked on Ford. His publicist was practically vibrating with panic, mouthing something to the producers, who looked equally frozen. Ford leaned back in his chair, his fingers tapping lightly on the armrest. He'd faced tough interviewers before, decades in the business had thickened his skin, but this felt different. Personal. Like Joy had come prepared with a script designed to provoke. You know, Joy, he said, his voice low and deliberate, I've been acting for over 50 years. I've worked with legends, Spielberg, Lucas, Scott. I've played carpenters, presidents, soldiers, and yes, a few grumpy heroes. I don't need to justify my career to someone who makes a living stirring up drama on morning TV. The studio gasped, a collective intake of breath that echoed off the walls. Joy's face flushed, her eyes narrowing. Stirring up drama, she snapped. I'm asking real questions, Harrison. Questions your fans deserve answers to. Or are you too much of a Hollywood diva to handle a little honest critique? The word diva landed like a slap, and the audience shifted, sensing the interview was spiraling into uncharted territory. Ford stood slowly, his chair scraping against the floor with a sound that cut through the silence like a blade. Honest critique, he said, his voice dangerously calm. This isn't critique, Joy. This is an ambush. I've dealt with real critics, people who actually understand film, who've studied it, who respect the craft. You're not even in their league. He paused, letting the words sink in. You sit here, tearing down people who create things, while you contribute nothing but cheap shots and negativity. Joy shot to her feet, her face a storm of indignation. Your league? Oh, please, Harrison. This is my show, and I'll ask whatever I damn well please. You don't get to waltz in here and act like you're above us just because you've got a few blockbuster posters on your wall. Her voice was rising now, sharp and shrill, the kind of tone that could shatter glass. The other hosts looked like they wanted to disappear. Whoopi opened her mouth to speak, but Joy barreled on. You think you're better than everyone else, don't you? Newsflash, Mr. Ford, your best days are long gone, and everybody knows it. The silence that followed was suffocating. Ford's hands clenched into fists at his sides, his knuckles widening. For a split second, something raw flickered across his face, hurt, maybe, or the sting of a wound Joy had unknowingly hit. The audience held its breath, waiting for the explosion. His publicist was gesturing frantically now, but the producers seemed paralyzed, their control booth a chaos of whispered arguments. Ford's voice, when he finally spoke, was barely above a whisper, yet it carried the weight of a lifetime in the spotlight. My best days are behind me, he repeated, his eyes locking onto Joy's with an intensity that made the room feel smaller. Let's talk about your best days, Joy. When were those, exactly? When you were bombing in comedy clubs, telling jokes nobody laughed at? Or when you clawed your way onto this show, trading on snark and gossip because you couldn't make it any other way? Joy's mouth fell open, her usual quick wit deserting her. She hadn't expected this, Ford fighting back with such surgical precision. How dare you, she stammered, her voice cracking. You don't know the first thing about my life or my career. I know enough, Ford shot back, stepping closer to the panel. His presence filled the stage, commanding attention like he was delivering a monologue in a packed theater. I know you've built whatever career you have by cutting people down. You hide behind this desk, behind these women, thinking it gives you a free pass to say whatever cruel thing pops into your head. And I know that deep down, you're probably miserable. Because happy people don't spend their lives trying to make others feel small. The other hosts were statues now, their faces a mix of shock and dread. Whoopi tried to interject, her voice weak with a half-hearted, okay, let's take a breath here, but both Ford and Joy turned to her with such ferocity that she sank back in her chair. The camera operators, sensing history in the making, kept rolling, their lenses capturing every second of the carnage. You think you can psychoanalyze me? Joy spat, her hands trembling. You arrogant has-been. You don't know what I've been through, what it takes to sit in this chair every day. Her voice was shaking now, teetering between rage and something more fragile, something almost vulnerable. Has been? Ford laughed, but there was no warmth in it. Joy, I made more last year than you'll see in a lifetime. My films are still packing theaters worldwide while you're here gossiping to fill the empty hours of people's mornings. If I'm a has-been, what does that make you? A never was? The audience gasped again, louder this time. A few people in the front row covered their mouths, their eyes wide with disbelief. This wasn't just a tense interview anymore, it was a verbal brawl, a clash of titans playing out on live television. Joy's face was a deep crimson now, her composure unraveling with every word. You think money's everything, don't you? She fired back. You think because you got lucky with a few big roles, that makes you untouchable? Lucky, Harrison. That's all you are. Lucky? Ford's voice rose for the first time, and the sound made the entire studio flinch. Lady, I spent years swinging a hammer on construction sites, taking bit parts in movies nobody remembers, before I got my shot. I earned every role I ever played through sweat and grit. You want to talk about luck? How about the luck of landing a job like this with nothing but a sharp tongue and a knack for being mean? The producers were in full panic mode now, gesturing wildly from the control booth, but Joy was too far gone to notice. She leaned across the desk, her eyes blazing. At least I don't phone in my performances, she snarled. At least I show up and try to do something interesting, not just mumble through the same tired shtick for a paycheck. Ford stepped even closer, his face inches from the panel. For a moment, it looked like he might actually reach across and grab her. His hands trembled slightly, his voice a low growl. Phone it in? You want to see phoning it in, Joy? Look around this studio. Look at this sad excuse for a show, where you sit around dissecting other people's lives because yours isn't worth talking about. You call that interesting? This is the most pathetic waste of airtime on television, and you're the reason why. Joy shot up from her chair, matching Ford's stance. They faced off like duelists in a high-noon showdown, the tension so thick it seemed to hum in the air. Get out, she said, her voice low and venomous. Get out of my studio right now. We don't need you or your washed-up ego here. Your studio? Ford's laugh was cold, cutting. This isn't your studio, Joy. It's a soundstage where they film your little gossip fest. You don't own anything here except that chair you've been warming for years, contributing nothing but misery to the world. He paused, letting the words sink in. You think this is entertainment? Tearing people down for ratings? You're not a host, you're a bully with a microphone. The cameras kept rolling, capturing every second of the destruction. Joy was shaking now, her finger jabbing toward Ford. You think you're above us, don't you? You think because you've got a few hit movies, you're some kind of god. Well, let me tell you something, Harrison, nobody cares about you anymore. Your career's a relic, and you're too stubborn to see it. The words hit like a punch, and for a moment, Ford's face went pale, the hurt flashing in his eyes before it hardened into something colder, sharper. The audience was silent, the weight of Joy's attack settling over the room like a storm cloud. Then Ford spoke, his voice so quiet it forced everyone to lean in to hear him. Nobody cares about me anymore, he said, each word deliberate, heavy. Joy, nobody cares about bitter, talentless people who make a living dragging others down. Nobody cares about failed comedians who were never funny to begin with. And nobody cares about your opinion of my career or anyone else's. Joy opened her mouth to retort, but Ford held up a hand, silencing her. I'm not done, he said, his voice growing stronger. You asked when I last challenged myself as an actor. Let me ask you something, Joy. When's the last time you challenged yourself to be a decent person? When's the last time you used this platform to lift someone up instead of tearing them down? When's the last time you looked in the mirror and asked yourself if you're making the world better or just adding to its ugliness? The studio was a tomb, the silence broken only by the faint hum of the cameras. Joy's hands shook, her face a mix of fury and something softer, something that looked almost like shame. You sanctimonious jerk, she spat, but her voice wavered. You think you're better than me? You think you're some kind of moral beacon because you've been in a few movies? Better than you? Ford's eyebrows shot up. I never said that, Joy. I'm just an actor trying to do my job and treat people with respect. But respect seems to be a foreign concept to you. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a whisper that carried more weight than a shout. You hide behind tough questions and honest criticism, but this isn't about truth. This is about you getting off on hurting people. You think it makes you powerful, but it just makes you small. Joy's face crumpled for a fleeting moment, like Ford's words had struck a nerve she didn't know she had. But she rallied, her voice rising to a near shriek. You don't get to judge me. You don't know what I've been through, what it takes to do this job every day. This job? Ford's voice was incredulous. This isn't a job, Joy. This is you sitting in a chair, mocking people's lives because it's easier than building something of your own. You attack, you belittle, you find weak spots and press until something breaks. And when someone finally calls you out, you play the victim. He stepped back, his eyes sweeping the panel. I'm done letting you execute me for your audience's amusement. He turned toward the edge of the stage, but Joy wasn't finished. Don't you walk away from me, she shouted, pointing after him. You think you can just insult me and leave? We don't need you, Harrison. We never did. Ford stopped, his back still to her. When he spoke, his voice was calm, almost weary. You're right, Joy. You don't need me. But maybe you need to ask yourself what you've become. Because if this is who you want to be, then I feel sorry for you. I really do. And with that, he walked off the set, his boots echoing in the stunned silence. Joy stood frozen, pointing at empty air, her face a mask of rage and humiliation. The other hosts scrambled to fill the void, their voices shaky as they tried to pivot to a commercial break. But it was too late. The cameras had captured it all, a clash that would be replayed, dissected, and debated for years. The audience sat in stunned silence, knowing they'd just witnessed a moment that would define daytime television history. Harrison Ford had walked into the View expecting a routine interview. Instead, he'd faced a firestorm, and fought back with a ferocity that left no one unscathed.